Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhurida Jana. So the master's birthday celebration at Dakshineshwar. So the master is conversing with the devotees. Master to the devotees. Ordinary people do not recognize the advent of an incarnation of God. He comes in secret. Only a few of his intimate disciples can recognize him. So this is the idea which we find that in all our scriptures, wherever the idea of the divine incarnation is there, whether it's Sri Krishna or whether it is Sri Rama, everywhere we find that they behave just like humans. So it becomes very difficult to realize that they are the incarnation of the divine. You will find in the incarnation of Sri Rama, he's just like any ordinary human being. He is pitiably crying when Sita was abducted. Just like ordinary human being. Even in the life of Sri Krishna, we will find a wonderful thing in Bhagavad Gita. In the 11th chapter, where we find that the Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga is in that chapter, when Sri Krishna reveals his divine form, that's the time Arjuna realizes that he is not an ordinary human being. Till now he thought him to be his friend. Till now he thought him just to be like him. His friend may be a bit more diplomatic, more powerful, but he is just a human being. He is his friend. For the first time, seeing the universal form of the divine as manifested through Sri Krishna, the Vishwarupa Darshana in the 11th chapter. There we find Sri Krishna's, Arjuna is saying something wonderful. What is saying? Sakheti matva prasabhang yaduktam He Krishna, He Yadava, He Sakheti Ajanata Mahimanam Tavedam Maya Pramadat Pranayena Vapi. The thinking of you as my friend, Sakha, Sakheti Matva. So I have addressed you as what? O Krishna, O Yadava. Just the way we address our friend by calling them their names. O Krishna, O Yadava, O my dear friend, Hey Krishna, Hey Yadava, Hey Sakheti, Sakha Krishna Yadava. Why I did that? Ajanata Mahimanam. I never understood your majesty. Mahimanam, your majesty. Tavedam Maya Pramadat Pranayena Vapi. And because of my ignorance, I have shown negligence and undue affection towards you. So what all this speaks of? Even in any divine incarnation, we find that the human aspect is very, very prominent. That though now and then they are getting identified with their real nature, but most of the time we find as if they are hiding their real nature. Why a divine incarnation when he incarnates? What's the purpose of hiding his real nature? So the scriptures say that unless he behaves like human, we never feel like following him, imitating him. If we always knew that he is the divine, our idea will be, oh, after all the things which he is doing in his life, the way he is leading his life is something superhuman. For a human being, it is not possible. And then what happens? He becomes just like a deity. So there are two words, Vigraha, Ahangraha. And these words are very, very interesting. What is Vigraha? That yes, when I place the image of my adorable, the one whom I adore, whom I think as the divine in the altar, and I am worshipping, that's the Vigraha. What is that? That yes, all the divine qualities which I have an idea of, I attribute them to the image. And I think I am a limited being. I am incapable of leading that type of life. All those virtues is thrown upon the deity. And I say, oh please save me. Somehow the idea is that those qualities somehow I cannot inculcate. I am a limited being. So there is no question of trying to transform my life. I just go, kneel down to the divine and say, please forgive me for whatever wrong I have done and save me. And there it ends. That's the idea of Vigraha. But in all our Vedantic scriptures we'll find that for the spiritual transformation, what is required is Ahangraha. Ahangraha means internalization. That all the divine qualities I have to internalize. The idea is divine is within me. That has to manifest. The God has incarnated so that the divine in me gets drawn towards it. The very nice that the idea, even in the Bible, there is a very nice quotation of Jesus. He says, worship the Spirit by the Spirit. That I am the Spirit, not this body-mind complex. And as a Spirit, I have to worship the Spirit, the Super Paramatma. Then only the question of transformation comes. So now if God incarnates with all his supernatural attributes fully manifested, as a human being, we will have a sense of awe, a tremendous sense of awe. But we will feel that all those qualities are because he is after all God. It's not possible for me to inculcate. And that's how we will never have the motivation to really progress in spiritual life. So he comes as a friend, just like us, just like an ordinary human being, so that we can interact with him, and in the process, gradually what will happen? That we will find that if I come in close association with him, that though he looks like an ordinary human being, there are so many traits which speaks of superhuman qualities. As a human being, it's not possible. So just when you read the Bhagavatam, that most of us, that's why they say don't read Bhagavatam with impure mind. When they read the Rasa Leela, we think, oh, Krishna also like an ordinary human being, sported with the gopis. Just the way we find a man and a woman, when they fall in love, the way they interact with each other, they come to relationships with each other. With our impure eyes, if we try to relate to the Leela of Sri Krishna, we also will think that way. But if you really with your intent, pure mind, with unbiased mind, if you try to read the Bhagavatam, you'll find a wonderful thing. That the Krishna is interacting with the gopis, but there is no trace of lust. That doesn't it speak of something superhuman? It is almost impossible for a human being that it is there in the scriptures they speak of the lotus leaf. The lotus leaf is in the water, but it doesn't get drenched by the water. So, unless he's behaving like an ordinary human being, we are never drawn towards it, and unless we are drawn towards it, we never focus on that life. And when we focus on that life, then only we find that he is Kapata Purusha. This word is used in the Bhagavatam, that Krishna is Kapata Purusha. Kapat means one who is an imposter. Yes, he is divine, he is an imposter. Why? He is behaving as if he is an ordinary human being. That's why he is called Kapat. Kapat is actually an abusive word. That if someone is a hypocrite, for that we use the word Kapat. But in Bhagavatam we find Krishna has been addressed as Kapata Purusha. What's the idea? That yes, he has hidden his real spiritual divine nature, his God, but he has incarnated as a human being and is behaving like a human being. So that's why it becomes almost impossible for an ordinary human being to recognize the advent of an incarnation of God. He comes in secret. Only a few of his intimate disciples can recognize him. Who can recognize? Those who are his intimate disciple. What that speaks of? Those who are already purified to a great extent. Those disciples. Just as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, only a jeweler knows the worth of a jewel. In some other context we will find in the Gospel, Sri Ramakrishna is speaking of a very nice parable in the form of a story. What's that? That one day a rich man asked his servant, he gave him some jewel and some diamond, some piece of diamond, and asked him to go to the marketplace and try to find out its worth. What's the worth of that diamond? First, he went to a vegetable vendor and asked this vegetable seller, so this is the thing, what do you think it's worth? In exchange, what are you going to give me? If I give it to you, in exchange, what are you going to give me? So he took it in his hand and he told, I can give you 9 pounds of eggplant, nothing else. He told, just please give me something bit more. Well, no, I have already mentioned more than the market value. I can give you nothing more than this 10 kilo of this eggplant or 9 kilo of this eggplant. So now this man returns, his servant returns with that diamond, and the rich man says, after all, he is just a vegetable seller. Go to some cloth merchant. The cloth merchant sees it and says, okay, I will give you 1,000 rupees or $1,000. So again he comes back. As he was not ready to give any higher price, he came back. And then at last the rich man told, go to the jeweler. The jeweler saw it, just a little he saw it, and immediately told, I'm going to give you $1 million. It was a very something like a stone, very precious stone. So only a jeweler knows the worth of a jewel. Holy Mother used to say a very interesting story that in a village, all the villagers used to, used to bathe in the village pond, and just on the bank of the village pond there was a rough stone that they used for rubbing their feet. Just for bathing, they used to use for rubbing their feet. And one day a jeweler came and he immediately realized that it is a very precious stone. All were using to rub their feet. So only the jeweler knows the worth of the jewel. What it speaks of? That one through his spiritual practices have purified his mind and has already transcended so-called the limitations of our human limitations. He can, seeing the avatar, the divine incarnation, can recognize him. It's very difficult for others to recognize him. Swami Vivekananda used to say a wonderful thing, that you will find that by default, we can easily see the fault in others. We can never see the goodness in others. By default. Whenever we meet, we always try to find fault in others. It's a very common trait. And Swami Vivekananda is giving the reason. He's saying a very nice thing. He says, what's the reason? That always we see the negativities in others. We never see the positivities in others. The reason is all the negativities, all the weaknesses are common to the entire humankind. you'll find all the weaknesses which I have, everyone has. So I can easily see it, relate to it. But all the goodness, it's through our own endeavor I have developed. It's very specific to me. How can others relate to it? It's impossible. Unless you too have developed certain character traits, it is impossible to relate to those character traits. You have not developed it. We reflect what we are. This world is nothing. When I see evil outside, know it for certain that evil is within me. Another nice example Swami Vivekananda gives, that suppose there is a lump of gold lying on a table and some small infant is crawling in that room, and suddenly from outside some outsider comes, seeing no one else, grabs that brick of gold that was lying on the table and runs away. Swamiji is asking that question after saying this. Does the infant knows that a lump of gold, a brick of gold has been stolen? No. Why he doesn't know? Because there is no thief in the child. He is innocent. He doesn't know that what stealing is. So as there is no thief in the child, he can never realize what theft is. So he's saying, repent. Swamiji is saying that when you see evil in the world, repent. Why repent? That my mind is not sufficiently pure enough. That's why I can relate to it. And I cannot relate to the goodness because it is not there in me. So avatar comes with all those divine traits which is not in me. That's why Sri Ramakrishna very nicely used to say that for us, what we are doing constantly, mulo khe mulo dhekutola. That's what he used to say. That when you eat radish, you belch the radish. The smell of radish comes from your mouth and you are in search. Oh, where is the radish? There must be radish somewhere. Here. That's why I'm getting the smell of it. But it is coming from within. So when you see evil, know it for certain it is within. So now you will understand that why it is not possible to recognize a divine incarnation. Because all the divine traits with which he has born, we cannot relate to it. But only those few disciples who are pure, sufficiently pure enough, they only can recognize him. So only a few of his intimate disciples can recognize him. That Rama was both Brahman absolute and a perfect incarnation of God in human form was known only to 12 rishis. The other sages said to him, Rama, we know you only as Dasharatha's son. So there's the same idea that it's only a few, that even for the sages, though are highly evolved enough, they only can recognize. For the rest, they think him as ordinary human being. As in the Bhagavad Gita in the 9th chapter, the 11th sloka, that's the idea has been spoken of by Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Avajananti mang mudha manushing tanumasritam parang bhavam ajananta mama bhuta maheshwaram. That avajananti mang mudha, that those who are deluded, mudha, they think me as manushing tanumasritam, that I am just an ordinary human being. I have taken the form of a human being. They can never realize my param bhava, my supreme divine reality. Param bhavam ajananta mama. That they don't know that I am the Maheshwara, I am the Ishwara, I am the great Lord of this entire bhuta, of this entire existence. They can never realize. The reason is that we are not sufficiently pure enough to relate to the divine traits of a divine incarnation. Can everyone comprehend Brahman, the indivisible existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute? He alone has attained perfect love of God. Having reached the absolute, keeps himself in the realm of the relative in order to enjoy the divine lila. So now Sri Ramakrishna says that who can recognize an incarnation? One who is already sufficiently pure and enough. What's the purity speaks of? It speaks of a spiritual realization. In the Yoga Sutra, very nicely it has been spoken of. The three states of mind. What are they? Sarvarthata, Ekagrata, Nirodha. What is this? That here a very nice thing has been mentioned by Sri Ramakrishna, that a real devotee, that he who has attained perfect love of God, having reached the absolute, keeps himself in the realm of the relative in order to enjoy the divine lila. What he's saying is something very interesting. Those who is a pure devotee, they come down just to enjoy the lila. And those who are there are others who are devotees. They are pravartakas. They are novices. For them, it is not possible to enjoy the pure lila. It is only for the advanced ones. Those who have went to the realization, they can enjoy the pure lila of the divine. Why? As we that we were just now mentioning, that the three states of our mind, sarvarthata, ekagrata, nirodha. What they speak of? The ordinary mind is sarvartha, distracted, constantly jumping from thought to thought. It can never keep the mind focused in one thought. Now with lot of endeavor, sadhana, that the one who is a pravartaka, who has started his spiritual journey, tries to keep his mind in the thought of God. Again he gets distracted. Again he tries. In the process, his focus becomes habitual. That all the vrittis, all the tendencies of distraction, they start falling off. How it happens? That as we mentioned, that all the things which is in our subconscious mind have entered there because we have thought them consciously today or in past. Nothing is lost. Whatever I do consciously, think consciously, feel consciously, immediately as sanskara, they get stored in my psyche. And that's how all those distracted thoughts has got stored in my subconscious mind. Now when I am trying to keep my mind concentrated on the thought of God, this conscious attempt is very weak compared to all those sanskaras, all those subliminal impressions. So they pop up and break your meditation. We all understand. But when I am trying to concentrate again and again, with each and every attempt, though I am failing, but with each and every attempt, as all the conscious thought gets converted into subconscious impression, so this attempt to keep the mind in one thought is also now saturating your subconscious mind. It's a very gradual process, but it is gradually concentrating and washing off all the distractions, the sarvarthata. So a time comes when your mind becomes habitually concentrated. So you have reached the state of ekagrata. So that example we give again and again, the cup full of turgid contents. It is full to the brim. Now you pour water. The turgid content starts overflowing and all the impurities starts getting diluted. A time comes, all the turgidity is washed off. The cup is now full of pure water. So that has become the habitual state of your mind. But that's not all. After that, something interesting happens. If you can really keep the mind in one thought, and it becomes very intensified, then the thought stops. The mind will enter into an arrested state that is called nirodha. All the thoughts will stop. As in the Yoga Sutra, they say that's the goal of our spiritual journey. Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. Why it happens? It needs a lot of explanation, but in a very simple way we can say, in this world, whatever is flowing, everything is flowing. Why everything is flowing? Because there is a polarity. Water flows from higher level to lower level. If both the levels are same, there is no flow. Electricity flows because there is a difference in potential. If two ends have same potential, no current. So anywhere you will find that whenever the polarity is resolved, the flow stops. In this world, everywhere you will find this polarity is there, and that's why the flow is there. Even in the mind. Why the mind is mind? Because it is constantly jumping from thought to thought. If you resolve the polarity by having a single thought, ekagra vritti only, intensified ekagra vritti, the mind falls off, taking you to the real. Then what happens? As we say, the mind is like a prism which is breaking the white light into the spectrum of 7 colors. The conscious principle in association with the mind is being projected as this world of name and form. The moment the prism called mind collapses, the spectrum merges with the white light, with the absolute reality. And that takes you to the realization that I am the divine conscious principle. Because of my association with the mind, this world, this prapancha comes into existence. So, this is a question of realization. But what happens when you will at the initial stage you will find when from sarvarthata we are trying to reach the state of ekagrata, again and again my concentration breaks. I go back to the state of sarvarthata. Trying, again I am going. But when the mind has become habitually ekagrata, then what happens? It no more can go back to the sarvarthata because it has already been cleansed. It is already ekagra. Now and then it is going to the state of nirodha, the spiritual realization. But as the subconscious mind is full of ekagra vritti, this ekagra vritti comes and again breaks the restricted state. So again, you come back to the world of duality, but you no more go down to the level of sarvarthata. You are always established now in ekagra vritti. So now, previously you were swinging from sarvarthata to ekagrata. Once you go to that realization, now you won't go back to the sarvarthata anymore. You will be swinging between ekagrata and the state of nirodha, which speaks of samadhi, which speaks of realization. So now what Sri Ramakrishna is saying is interesting. That one who have once reached that absolute, he comes down only to enjoy the divine lila, that through the ekagra vritti, the divine sport on which he was meditating, he cannot go down below that. His mind has already been purified. So only that he comes down just to enjoy the divine lila. You'll find in the life of Ramakrishna, again and again he is going into samadhi, and to bring him down from samadhi, you have to take the name of God. He will instruct that take the name of Lord, and listening to the name of Lord, he comes down. Very interesting. We take the name of God so that we can concentrate our mind. My mind is so distracted. To go beyond the distraction, I take the name of Lord. Try to repeat the name of Lord, concentrate my mind on the name of Lord. So we are trying to rise up from sarvarthata to ekagrata. And for a spiritual divine incarnation like Ramakrishna, his mind will merge in the absolute. But his advent is because to serve the humanity by showing them the way to the spiritual illumination. So if he leaves his body in samadhi, his purpose won't be served. So that's why the same divine name which helps us to rise in our so-called psyche, the avatara is using to come down. That's the avatarana. He comes down. Again and again. In the gospel you will find. Even in the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the same thing. Coming back, swinging from this 3 dasha, Bahya dasha, Ardha Bahya dasha, Antar dasha. Constant is swinging. Again and again is coming down. Why? To enjoy the divine sport in the world of duality. Nothing below that. Because already his mind has been purified. So now you will understand these words, the simple words, but actually speaking of the one who has attained to the state of realization and comes down only to enjoy the divine lila. Nothing else. He can never go below that. So, can everyone comprehend Brahman, the indivisible existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute? He alone has attained that perfect love of God, who, having reached the absolute, keeps himself in the realm of relative in order to enjoy the divine Leela. So, with the help of the divine Leela, by thinking of God, he has went to that absolute, and again when he comes down, he enjoys that divine Leela. So that's his purpose. He never goes below that. Even in the life of Shukadeva, you will find the same thing. That he was born with the tremendous renunciation. When the moment he was born as a young person and he started running. Because he found that this samsara, this world is going to bind him. So he was running. Vyasa was running after him. His father was running after him. There's a nice description in the Bhagavatam. And then his father realized who he is. How he realized? That as a young boy, fully naked, he was running, and all the nymphs were having a shower, were taking a bath in a reservoir. And when Shukadeva was passing near the reservoir, the nymphs never felt embarrassed, never felt shy. Though they were bathing, they were not having any robes. Even seeing this young man without clothes running, they never felt any shy. They were just taking they were just having their bath without any disturbance, without getting agitated. Now, as Vyasa was following Shukadeva, after some time Vyasa came there. And seeing Vyasa, he was an old man. All these nymphs, they felt extremely ashamed. They tried to cover themselves. Now Vyasa was surprised that my son is a young boy without clothes. He was running. Seeing him, the nymphs never felt any shame. And seeing me, an old man, they are so much ashamed. So out of this being surprised, he asks the nymphs, how come it is that seeing this boy, you never felt ashamed? Seeing me, you are feeling ashamed, this old man? And the nymphs, what they replied, that actually is something wonderful. That reflecting on that, Vyasa understood that running after whom? The nymphs told that he doesn't have a sense of body. Do you ever feel ashamed seeing a small child? You never feel any strike of shame in presence of a small child, because the child has no sense of body. It is the other person's sense of body which makes me feel ashamed. It's a very interesting thing. So that Sukadeva, he is all otherworldly. He is running without any sense of body. But you do have, though you are highly spiritually advanced, but still you couldn't leave the sense of body. So seeing you, we feel ashamed. But for him, this is just like a small child. We never feel ashamed. Now Vyasa realized that after whom he was running. So he now goes back. He stops to run after, chase Shukadeva, and Shukadeva goes in deep forest. And he was immersed in deep samadhi. Why we are saying that they come down to enjoy the Leela? That's the thing. In the life of Shukadeva we will find. Now when Vyasa wrote the Bhagavatam, as we were saying, that it is such a scripture which is very difficult to understand with impure mind. So it has to be preached by someone who is extremely pure, who has no trait of impurity. And then the Vyasadeva thought of Shukadeva came again for Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva again thought of Shukadeva. Why? That this my son, who at the very birth itself ran away from the family, must be somewhere in the deep forest, immersed in deep samadhi. He is the one who if preaches Bhagavatam, people will try to understand his real meaning, that such a pure soul, totally detached from life, he is preaching this life of Krishna. Then it must be something which has some higher spiritual dimension. Then they will take it seriously. So now the thought of his son came, and now but how to bring him back? He won't come back. This story was very interesting, that Vyasa from Bhagavatam itself, one of the verse which describes the beauty of Krishna. As a young boy, he is returning in the evening. After throughout the day he was gazing the cows in the forest, now along with the other gopas, with the other cowherd boys. Now in the evening he's coming back. His beauty has been described, and then when he's coming back, that the dust of the path in the Godhuli, and the cows has been spread in the atmosphere. The sun rays is falling on it, and it has created a very divine an aroma has been created, and Krishna is returning to Vrindavan. A wonderful sloka. So this Vyasa taught to a few of the cowherd boys, and he instructed them that go deep into the forest and chant this. You will see someone meditating, sitting at such and such a spot, and he's in deep meditation, as if he has no sense. Just go near him and start chanting this, and you will find he will have horripilations. His hairs will stand on the end. He will come down from meditation. Tears will flow from his eyes. And he will be eager to know where they learned that sloka. The moment he asks, who has taught you? Don't say my name. Just ask him, do you want to see him, meet him? He will be very eager to meet the one who has composed this. And then bring him to me. That's how Shukadeva was brought back to Vyasa. That's the story in the Bhagavatam is mentioned. And then through Shukadeva, the Bhagavatam was preached to the humankind. Now why we are just telling this story? Just to relate to this line. That one who has attained, reached the absolute, but keeps his mind in the realm of the relative. Just see in the Shukadeva. But thinking of God, went to that samadhi, and again the word of God, that's thing which brings him down from that state to the state of devotion. Why? Because holding on to this, he went there. So his subconscious mind, he still has the seed, the vija. Though he has went into samadhi, but it is savija samadhi. There are two types of samadhi. One is nirvija and another is savija. There are some aspirants who once reaches the samadhi, wants to stay in that state. So for them what happened? Just the way for the ordinary soul, the more he meditates, the more the ekagra vritti washes off the sarvartha vritti. Similarly here, once you go to that state of samadhi, beyond the mind, the more you try to remain in that state, the more the ekagra vritti gets washed off. All the ishta vritti gets washed off. At last, you merge in the absolute. But there are some aspirant who don't want to get merged in the absolute. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Ami chini khete chai. The chini, I don't want to become sugar. I want to eat sugar. So that's the very interesting thing, that to become sugar, I want to enjoy the taste of sugar. I don't want to become sugar. So here also there are spiritual aspirants who want to enjoy the taste, want to keep that distinction between me and the Lord. So they never want to get absorbed in that state. So whenever they find that their mind is going to that state, they will bring it down again to the divine play. In Chaitanya Charitamrita also we find the same thing. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asking Ramananda that what's the state beyond this, beyond this. And when at last Ramananda was speaking of that state of that absolute, Mahaprabhu never said that state is something which is impractical or not possible. He says, don't say it, stop. Don't say it, he resists saying that. He forcefully asks him to stop, because his mind is so pure. He also knows that that's the state. If it stays in that, his mind will get totally bereft of this ekagra vritti. He cannot come down. Don't say, stop it. He's asking me. So that's that idea which has been spoken of here. So again, let us read that line. Can everyone comprehend Brahman, the indivisible existence, knowledge, absolute bliss? He alone has attained perfect love of God, who having reached the absolute, keeps himself in the realm of relative in order to enjoy the divine lila. A man can describe the ways and activities of the queen if he has previously visited her in England. Only then will his description of the queen be correct. So again the same idea. There's the idea that unless you have reached the absolute, you can never know that what that state is. In the scriptures they speak of the idea of this of Nativada. The one who is realized is Nativada. His speech never transcends. His speech never transcends his realization. To understand these lines, let us take an example. That a person who has tasted the mango, he comes to a place, to a village where no one have tasted mango. And he explains them about he describes them the taste of mango. You know, there is a fruit, wonderful fruit. It's called mango. It is very sweet and it has a nice flavor. Now all these people who heard this word, who have not tasted the mango, they think, oh, we have understood what mango is. And now they try to relate his words with their available fund of experience. They have not tasted mango. So now we will find varied opinions. Some start saying that, oh, mango is sweet like molasses and it has a flavor, it has a smell like the jasmine. Someone says, no, it must be like honey. It has the smell of tuberose or rose. Why these so many varied opinions? Because none have tasted the mango. They are trying to relate to those words with their available fund of experience. So however they may try, they can never understand what the taste of mango is. But if someone among them have tasted the mango, immediately hearing that word, he can realize what he's saying. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying that unless you have gone there, these words have no meaning. That the one who has met the queen, that we might have read in the book about the queen, that at that time Victoria was the queen. And after reading, you can just memorize that and give a nice speech. People may have an idea, oh, most probably he knows personally the queen, but actually have not. It's mere words. That is ativada. You are speaking beyond your realization. So that's the thing, that only when you have gone to the realization, then only what you speak, that do make sense. You have a subjective feeling. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that unless you are the mother, how can you realize what mother's love is? His words are very simple. He says, a village girl was married, and after marriage, he went to his in-laws' house, and after 1 year, she returned. And she returned with a child. Now by that time she has already given birth to a child. With the child she returned. And all other girls who were her friends, they were yet to be married. So they came to meet. And seeing the small child in their friend's lap, they said, oh, you're the mother now. How does it feel like becoming a mother? That's the question they asked. Her reply was very interesting. That's the reply. That's the reply you will find. That I cannot describe. She's saying, I cannot describe what mother's love is. You have to become the mother to know what mother's love is. Otherwise, I cannot explain. So it is something which is experienceable, but which cannot be described. In the words of Ramakrishna again, Kamon ghee na jamun ghee. Those who have tasted ghee, they know very well that we all have tasted ghee. If I now ask you, please describe the taste of ghee. Can you describe? No. But do you know what it is? Yes, I know. So it has a nice flavor, nice taste, but I cannot explain it. So it is experienceable, not describable. So that's the thing when Sri Ramakrishna is saying that who can describe? The one who has experienced. A man can describe the ways and activities of the queen if he has previously visited her in England. Only then will his description of the queen be correct. Sages like Bharadwaja adored Rama and said, O Rama, you are nothing but the indivisible Satchidananda. You have appeared before us as a human being, but you look like a man because you have shrouded yourself with your own Maya. These rishis were great devotees of Rama and had supreme love of God. So that's the idea which we are discussing. There's only those who have went to the realization. They can realize the divine incarnation. Only a jeweler can know the worth of the jewel. So otherwise, it is impossible. So when two jewelers meet, when they are talking about the worth of the jewel, they know what they are talking. Others can never realize. That's the idea which Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. That the path of devotion leads to the realization of God. And then when you're coming down, then only you become nativada, na ativada. Your speech doesn't transcend your realization. You're not speaking something which is beyond your realization. Masters, now presently some devotees from Konnagar arrived singing kirtan to the accompaniment of drums and cymbals. As they reached the northeast veranda of Sri Ramakrishna's room, the master joined in the music, dancing with them, intoxicated with divine joy. Now and then he went into samadhi, standing still as a statue, while he was in one of these states of divine unconsciousness. The devotees put thick garlands of jasmine around his neck. The enchanting form of the master reminded the devotees of Chaitanya, another incarnation of God. The master passed alternately through three moods of divine consciousness. The inmost, when he completely lost all knowledge of outer world. The semi-conscious, when he danced with the devotees in an ecstasy of love. And the conscious, when he joined them in loud singing. It was indeed a sight for gods to see the master standing motionless in samadhi, with fragrant garlands hanging from his neck, his countenance beaming with love, and the devotees singing and dancing around him. So what he just spoke of, that was finding expression through his life. That's going from one state to the other. Just now was singing, just by taking the name of the Lord, his mind becomes so absorbed that he cannot speak. This is a very interesting thing. When you are concentrating for the first time, in our scriptures you will find that for an initial stage, the mantras can be quite long, like the Gayatri, quite a big mantra. Those who are the pravartakas, where there's, taking the name of the Lord, for them, these 36 letters of this Krishna, Hare Krishna, such a big mantra. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's such a big one. Why such big mantras? The one who has never concentrated his mind previously, just to concentrate on the Pranava Dhvani or the Omkara, it is very difficult. It speaks of a very short bandwidth. So why not have a bigger bandwidth at the beginning? That at the beginning, it helps me. If it's a bigger bandwidth, a bigger mantra. But as you go on meditating, very interesting, you will find in Indian tradition, whenever you are repeating any mantra, generally it is always preceded by Omkara. The Omkara and then the mantra. Why? That you will find that as your mind becomes extremely concentrated, it becomes very difficult to keep the mind in such a long bandwidth because it is getting intensified. But you need something to hold on. So that Omkara is the thing on which the mind holds on at last. So what happens? You will find as the mind gets intensified, your speech stops. It's getting more and more focused. More and more focused. So that's why they say in Ardhavaya Dasa, that singing also stops. But somehow that little motion of the body is still visible in the form of that rhythmic dancing. And then when the mind has totally gone into the state of samadhi, he becomes like a statue, motionless. That he is the body, that someone has to support him, otherwise he will fall. Why? Because when the mind is totally focused, even the ego has dropped off for the time being. Your mind has become one with the Absolute. That is called Triputi Bheda. Triputi. That even for us, we will find that when my mind is extremely concentrated, everything has fallen off. But somehow I cannot get rid of the idea that I am meditating. This is the object of meditation. I am the meditator. This is the object of meditation. And meditation is the thing which is connecting these two. I can never get rid of this because the ego is still intact. Ego is the last thing to fall off. But the moment the ego falls off, what happens? you become one with the object of meditation. That is called Triputi Bheda. Dhyana, Dhyata, Dheya. This distinction falls off. Meditator, meditated, and the meditation. This triad falls off. You become one with the object of meditation. That's what in the Samadhi it happens, where the ego has fallen off. And that's the state of this Antardasha. He is in the totally absorbed in that his divine absorption. So that's the thing is spoken of here. In the life of Sri Ramakrishna we find that Lila dhore dhore nitya java. Hold on to the Lila. Start with the God's divine name. It will take you to that absolute. So these three states which was visible palpably in the life of Ramakrishna, that's what he was speaking of. And that's the same description we find in the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's what the devotees were blessed enough to see with their naked eyes in front of them, the play of the divine. That's being indicated here. When it was time for his noon meal, Sri Ramakrishna put on a new yellow cloth and sat on the small couch. His golden complexion, blending with the yellow cloth, enchanted the eyes of the devotees. After his meal, Sri Ramakrishna rested a little on the small couch. Inside and outside his room crowded the devotees, among them Kedar, Suresh, Ram, Manomohan, Girindra, Rakhal, Bhavanath, and M. Rakhal's father was also present. A Vaishnava Goswami was seated in the room. The master said to him, "Well, what do you say? What is the way?" "Sir, the chanting of God's name is enough. The scripture emphasizes the sanctity of God's name for Kali Yuga." So here what Sri Ramakrishna says, with this we will conclude our class today. It is something very interesting. Yes, there is no doubt about the sanctity of God's name. But can a mere name achieve anything without the yearning love of the devotee behind it? One should feel great restlessness of soul for the vision of God. Suppose a man repeats the name of God mechanically, while his mind is absorbed in woman and gold. Can he achieve anything? Mere muttering of magic words won't cure one of the pain of a spider or scorpion sting. One must also apply the smoke of burning cow dung. So what he's saying, that the yearning is the main thing, just not the repetition of the name of the Lord. That we repeat the name of the Lord so that at last we develop yearning. As we always say, that anything which we repeat helps us. How? Because of the neuroplasticity of our mind, what we repeat, that as it creates a path in the mind. And once the path is created, we get obsessed by it. We forget the necessity. All our obsessions, all our attachments have grown that way in our life. That whatever out of necessity I do, when I do again and again, I forget the necessity. Doing that becomes my obsession. So the thing by which we got trapped by our mind, the same mechanism can be used cleverly to actually go out of the trap. I start taking the name of the Lord. This becomes an obsession. Once it becomes an obsession, taking the name of the Lord becomes spontaneous because it's an obsession. Just the way, and unless you have developed love for something, you can never have effective meditation. The real meditation speaks of love. Just the way the mother constantly thinks of the child. Whatever she may be doing, she is constantly thinking of the child. Have you ever heard a mother sitting and meditating on the child lest she forgets her child? That we meditate on God. Why? That we forget God. That's why we meditate. But does the mother have to meditate on the child because she may forget the child? Never. Because she loves the child. That love makes the meditation spontaneous. So here also, by taking the name, the yearning should develop. That's what he's saying. He's not denying that taking the name of the Lord is not effective. It is effective. But what he's stressing, there are many who just take the name mechanically, never having that intention to really develop the love for God. They do all the things of life just with the the rosary is in the hand, it is mechanically being just rotating. So unless you have a very clear idea that why I am doing it, you will never develop the motivation. And unless you develop the motivation, the yearning will never come. So do it with that idea that what I am doing today, tomorrow it is going to become spontaneous, because I will develop love, that yearning, and that yearning itself can make my meditation more effective and take me to the realization. So that's why he's stressing that yearning is very important. Without yearning, just taking the name of Lord has no value. That yearning should develop. So that's what he's indicating. So with this, we stop our discussion today. We'll continue again in the next class, the following section. Thank you all. Namaskar.